right, welcome to session 12, which is our last session. Congratulations for working your way through all 12 sessions. In this session, we are going to be looking at other management logistics, specifically registering your business, paying taxes, and sources of funding. For this session, we usually prefer to have speakers to come in who can talk specifically about what it means to register a business in your country, in your context. What specifically are the expectations of paying taxes given the size of your business, as well as people who can speak to sources of funding, so from MFIs, microfinance institutions, or banks, or village savings and loans, different opportunities like that. So this is a session that's relatively short in terms of the PowerPoint, but hopefully you'll be able to have your facilitator will be able to bring in a speaker talking about registering the business and expectations for taxes, as well as somebody who can talk about sources of funding. We want to start the session, though, by looking at Galatians 6, verses 7 through 9, which says this: "Do not be misled. You cannot mock the justice of God. You will always harvest what you plant. Those who live only to satisfy their own sinful nature will harvest decay and death from that sinful nature. But those who live to please the Spirit will harvest everlasting life from the Spirit. So let us not get rid of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up." And that is our prayer for you in this last session, that you don't give up. We know that we harvest what we sow. And if you're in agriculture of any kind, you know that you plant corn, you're going to get corn. Or maize. You plant tomatoes, you're going to get tomatoes. If you plant nothing, you're going to get something come up. Weeds will come up. And so we want to live out, have our behavior and our beliefs show a biblical worldview, a worldview that has paid attention to who God is and what He is able to do. And when we do that, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. There are 3 principles that we can get from this text. First, you may sow your seed in the dark, but the harvest will not stay in the dark. And so that comes out of this part that says God cannot be mocked. Whatever you sow is going to come up. And we often sow in the dark, right? We put things into the dark soil, but it does come into the light. And so be sure that what you are planting is something that you want to be happy about when it comes out into the light. Principle 2. The harvest will always be the same as a seed. You can never plant maize and reap beans. So don't be surprised at what you reap if you are not sowing what is within a biblical worldview. That you desire to have God bless something when you didn't plant it in a way that allows for Him to bless it is going to be a challenge. Principle 3 is beautiful. The harvest will always be bigger than the seed. You can't grow a seed of corn and just get one seed. It's always bigger. So be careful what you sow. And that's both a positive as well as a challenge. The harvest will always be bigger than the seed. So take that in consideration as we go from this place. Over our time together, we've looked at the foundation, and I hope you've made some decisions on how to have a strong foundation. We've looked at the walls, and we're doing our last bit of painting, of touch-up on our walls today, where we set good boundaries to protect the walls, to make the walls strong through management, through budgeting, through love, right? Limits, obligations, values, and excellence. We've put our doors and our windows in place so people can be attracted to the business through customer service, through pricing, through marketing. And lastly, we hope we've put on a strong roof through bookkeeping that can protect the assets of the business from rain, from wind, from sun, and from spoiling in other ways. When we look at registering our business, our first topic for today, we believe that it's important that you register your business. Legal registration is important to grow your business. It's ethical to do that. The law requires that you to do that. And it also has several benefits. Compliance with the law means that it's going to be better received by the government. And so again, it shows an impact of your character when you register your business and you comply with the law. As a tax-paying business, you can hold the government accountable for its policies, laws, and services. When you comply with the law, it will you will be able to say, this business is paying taxes, so therefore you can make some demands. If you're not paying taxes, you really don't have a lot of room to complain about what the government is doing. The third, respect. It gives you respect in the community, and it could cause for sales to be increased. They can tell when you are living a life of integrity, and registering your business is one way of complying with that. It also gives you an opportunity to participate in national or regional business conferences or trainings held by the government. So it gives you a voice. In many ways, registering your business gives your business a voice, not just as an individual now, but as a separate legal entity, and that's very important. How you do that is going to be different in every country. The steps that you need to take, how to do it without paying bribes is going to be a challenge. Those are things that you can have local speakers talk to you about. The next one then is taxation. And taxation, of course, is the system of compulsory contributions levied by a government or other qualified public body on people, corporations, and on property in order to fund public expenditures. Okay, so everybody's familiar with taxes. Some places where we work, the tax system is very high. Other places it's not so high, but almost always people complain about it. We don't like giving our taxes up, and yet we do want the government to have funds to be able to level the playing field, and that is the point of taxation. We are taxed in order to have the government provide the infrastructure necessary so that everybody is able to work, whether it's the road system, the water system, the electrical system. That is the purpose. And so we pay taxes from Matthew 22, verse 21. Jesus says, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. And so we are being told to pay taxes, and we need to remember that this system of authority has been put in place to help everybody flourish. Now, maybe you're not happy with your government and how they handle the taxes. That's their problem. That's their issue. That's for them to figure out how to resolve. And us as citizens, when we vote, it's for us to help manage as well in terms of who we put into power and why we put that person into power. But the command is there that we pay our taxes. And it's a good thing for taxes to be paid so that all people can flourish. And we are being told by God to do that. The last thing we want to look at then is our sources of funding. Where do we get sources of funding? And many of us, as we've created our business plan, we've said we need to get a loan. And in order to get a loan, we need to be able to qualify for a loan. And it's very important as we look at loans that we look at loans that will not be used for consumption, but will actually be used to grow the business. But there are other sources of fundings that we want to look at before we go to loans. And the first is personal savings. This, of course, is an effective option to avoid acquiring debt. There are many different types of savings. For example, investing retirement funds in a business that fails has a higher cost for the business owner than investing current savings set aside specifically for the business. So you need to be careful that you don't draw against your pension or your retirement fund because that will get you into a lot more trouble later. But learning to save regularly is something we talked about in bookkeeping. Learning to borrow from yourself or to be able to leverage that in other groups would be something that is a good option. Friends and families is another potential source of funding. This option can work, but has the potential to destroy friendships in families. One thing that we hear over and over is don't lend to family or friends because it will spoil the relationship. Bible says, we can give it as a gift even. Now, lending is not bad. We also see many examples in the Bible where there is lending that's given, but we do know that there is a risk in that. Bank loans, these loans range in size from small to large, depending on the business. Most businesses have access to local banks or loan institutions that provide funding that the business may borrow if it's qualified and has a viable need for the loans. And so you'll have to justify that you are worthy of it through income statements, through a balance sheet. You may have to give collateral for it, something to back up that loan, like a vehicle logbook or a land deed. And then the last one is microfinance organizations or a savings and loan association. These are good options if you do not have savings, as they can offer interest rates that are lower than the informal market, but still usually higher than banks. And so it's a trade-off on what you're going to use for that. Where you want to stay away from are loan sharks. This is the worst option because loan sharks take advantage of business owners by charging high interest rates. And that's same with payroll advance. A lot of people take payroll advances and you end up paying a very high interest rate on that. It's better to get ahead of that, suffer through one pay period, struggle through that, and so that you can get ahead of that and not need to do that. The last option here is government programs. These are less frequent source, but at times governments may have programs available for especially young entrepreneurs. They may have it in a specific area like agriculture, where they're offering incentives for people to go into a particular area. Sometimes people have options for investments. People might be willing to invest capital if they see an opportunity for profit. This usually requires that the investment is paid back plus the interest or plus the profits if it's dividends related. And so let's talk a little bit now about loans. What is a loan? A loan is borrowed money. Loans are sometimes needed to help a business meet its goals. Therefore, debt can be an effective tool to help businesses grow if used wisely. Most businesses need between 4 or 5 loans in order to help them grow to a level where they feel like they are comfortable in being. And yet sometimes a business can sink with its first loan if it's too much too quickly and the cost is too high. Borrowing a loan has many advantages. It enables the business to purchase a larger inventory or to buy in bulk to serve customers better and increase their profits. It enables the business to hire employees to expand the production or services it provides. And it enables owners to purchase equipment that will allow their business to grow. It's an investment in your business. And all of these show the investment part of the loan. It's not there for consumption, but all of these will help actually grow production and grow capital. Borrowing a loan can have challenges and disadvantages. Extra capital can tempt the owner to live off the loan, or use the loan for funerals or for school fees or something else that's not going to give you any income back, and then you're in further trouble because you have to pay the principal plus the interest. The owner can be tempted to buy non-essential items for the business. Often putting money into a building or into land, it's a good investment, but you're going to have a hard time paying it back. The owner might be tempted to spend the loan on family needs, which I just mentioned. Borrowing a loan can also have challenges and disadvantages. The owner may not be ready to manage the increase in money. And so there are some texts that talk about, especially when the people were entering Jericho after wandering in the desert, that they were being warned God was not going to get rid of all of the people groups at one time, or else the wild animals would come in and destroy them. Just the same for us. It's not good for us to get a loan that is too big, that we will have a difficult time managing. Often people say, don't take a loan larger than about 30% of the total assets that you have in your business. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to manage. A loan might prolong the life of a struggling business when the better option is to shut it down. Sometimes people think people take loans because a business is struggling, and that can be the case. It's not a good idea to do that. Better to let things close and then find something different. Often you'll need collateral, some terms to look at. Collateral is anything of value that the borrower pledges to the lender, and the lender keeps the property if the borrower defaults on the loan. So that's where a land deed or a vehicle logbook or a machine, something that you can offer as collateral. A contract is a legally binding agreement entered into by the borrower and the lender. So it's legally binding once you sign that. You may have a cosigner or somebody, an individual or a group, who promises to repay the loan if the borrower defaults. And the interest then is the cost of borrowing the money. It's what you agree to pay. Penalty is a fee that's charged if the borrower fails to make a payment on time. Principal is the amount that's borrowed. And the terms of the loan is the detailed description of everything involved with the loan: the principal, interest, due dates, length of loan, payment options, collateral, and so on. And so if you're going to a bank or a microcredit institution, there are 5 things that they tend to look for. We call these the 5 C's of credit. First is your capacity, the ability and current capacity you have to repay. And so some of that capacity will be looked at through your income statements and your balance sheet. Number 2 is the capital. The more capital you have invested in your business, the better, since you have more to lose and will work harder to repay. So how much do you have in assets? If you have very little, you can disappear very quickly, and it's not going to be easy for the bank. Third, collateral. What you forfeit to the lender if you're unable to repay. What are you able to offer as collateral? Number 4, conditions. What are the conditions that you're looking at? The terms of the loan that specify how the money will be loaned out and then repaid as well. And last is character, how you are perceived by the lender. Lender will evaluate your honesty, your integrity, your dependability, and your background. And so that's where your actions will come back, where what is sown in the dark, once it comes to light, you want it to be things that are good. And so how your character and your behavior has been as a business person and with other loans, previous loans, will be evaluated as well. Remember this about borrowing loans. Loans come in many different sizes and terms. Shop around for the best value when seeking a loan. Do not take the first one offered to you if another lender might make a better offer. Remember that loans are not free money. They are borrowed. They must always be repaid. And that's also why we recommend that you do not tithe on a loan. It's not free money. It's not a first fruit. It is a liability. It's something that you must repay. And so if you're already paying interest and then you also tithe on that loan, you're going to have a very difficult time repaying that loan. You tithe on the first fruits. You tithe from what you have earned from the loan, but not from the loan itself. When you borrow a loan from a lender, the obligation to repay the loan belongs to you. Also remember this, when you borrow a loan for your business, the funds do not belong to you or your family and should not be used for personal reasons. We can't stress that enough. We can't say it enough times. It almost always happens still, and we really want to discourage that. Interest is usually figured annually, but is quoted for payment on a monthly basis. Just like business, most lending institutions are also in the business to make money through the interest and the fees in order to be self-sustainable while meeting the demand for loans in the community. And so we have to remember that they may act like they're wanting to serve you, but they are really trying to stay in business themselves. And according to the Bible, we must be faithful in repaying our debt. And this is very important, that we keep our word and that we make an agreement and we stick to that no matter what. So some things to tie up this last session. You need to look at your financing plan worksheet. So what are your plans for financing? Where do you plan to go and how do you plan to go? What is the amount you are looking for? What will you do with that? Write it out on paper and let it become part of your business plan. You should take some time to review with your facilitator the business plan that we laid out for you in session 1 to make sure that you see all the different components and how all those components fit together over our 12 sessions. Also, talk about the date of when your business plan is expected to be turned in, and that would include then your graduation date as well as your commissioning date. And lastly, we'd like for you to do a summary evaluation as well as a post-training assessment, which your facilitator will give to you for you to fill out. We thank you so much for your time. We wish you God's blessing in your business, that you may grow and in the knowledge and the wisdom of God, both in yourself personally as a business person, as well as your business, and that you may be fruitful and multiply, that you may be working to help people flourish in and around you. God bless you.